In 2014, James Garner passed away, leaving $20 million. The money came with secrets that tore his family apart, even though they believed they, music, were set for life. For years, he and his daughter, Kimberly, had been at odds over her acting career. Following the funeral, she, his second daughter, found something startling in his personal files. There is a troubling trend in 2015 court documents that no one anticipated. Everything was altered by the secrets Garner kept regarding his familial ties. Peace was meant to come from the inheritance. It revealed wounds that never healed instead. James Garner was born in Norman, Oklahoma, on April 7, 1928. A little child who was unaware of how rapidly life, music, would begin to rob him of things. When he was 4 years old, his mother passed away. Unbeknownst to him until he turned 15, a cousin revealed the truth about her death, a botched abortion that destroyed the family. There was simply a faint aching that followed him everywhere, and he hardly remembered her. Her passing forced the family into an even more difficult situation as the Great Depression already had a strong hold on them. Being handed from relative to relative, he and his brothers were constantly on the move, never settled, and always felt a little out of place. James anticipated that things would settle down when his father eventually remarried. Instead, though, the mansion became a place he feared. Every room was filled with fear due to the woman they named Red. Hangers, music, spatulas, and even her bare hands were used to beat them, and she appeared to spare the worst for him. She wore him down with that, music, because he was little and only a boy. She broke his spirit one day by making him wear a frock in public and calling him Louise. He carried the guilt for years, but when he reached 14, everything changed. He was brutally attacked again, and then he lost it and fought back. He grasped, music, her throat after hurling her to the ground. She never came back after leaving the house that day. He had never felt the burden of defending himself before. He carried that lesson with him throughout his life. Shortly after, he began working. At the age of 14, he was transporting 50-pound blocks of ice over the heat of Oklahoma for 25 cents each. Because he was little, older workers made fun of him and shoved him around whenever they felt like it. But he became more resilient with every lengthy stroll while carrying a heavy block. He ended himself living in a boarding house managed by his stepmother after his father remarried. In addition to cleaning rooms and dealing with unruly residents, he was once jokingly confined in a closet. His rage continued to grow, and after confronting a bully, he was kicked out of school. Nevertheless, despite his ignorance at the time, every difficult event provided him with something he would require later. After another altercation with a teacher at the age of 16, he concluded he was tired of Oklahoma. He traveled to Los Angeles to live with his father by hitchhiking. He took whatever employment that came his way. A gym teacher once remarked on his appearance and music, sent him to try out for a Janssen swimwear. All of a sudden, he was earning more money modeling music than teachers were, at $25 per hour. Although he detested his job, the money kept him afloat. And gradually, the lights and sounds of the city began to point forth another way to him. He started to draw the attention of agents, photographers, and others from other worlds. Even though he still had a lot of problems, there was finally a glimmer of hope. In the same year, he joined the Merchant Marine by lying about his age. He was 16. He found himself serving on oil tankers, music, in 1944 as the war was nearing its last year. He was on a ship when a kamikaze struck it in April 1945 during the Battle of Okinawa. 12 of his crewmates, music, passed away in an instant. He was flung into a metal wall as shrapnel tore into his back, and he was eventually hauled to safety. Though the wounds remained with him forever, he hardly ever discussed that day. Records from that era demonstrated the fatal nature of those missions, as over 8,650 merchant seafarers lost their lives throughout the conflict. He had entered one of the riskiest environments a youngster could be in, music. He then enlisted in the army and traveled to Japan to join the 24th Infantry Division. He started working as an officer bathhouse attendant. Months after the atomic bomb was dropped, he undertook a supply run one day that led him directly into Hiroshima. He recalled people with wounds that never seemed to heal, molten buildings, and ground-burning shadows. For years, the images lingered in his nightmares. Numerous men from that division experienced the same trauma, and subsequent medical reports demonstrated the extent of the psychological damage. When he came home in 1946, he had little else but a Purple Heart. He was unclear of what to do, hungry, and desperate. On some days, he would steal auto parts in order to, music, survive. He once made $5 by pawning his Purple Heart to pay for gas. Although he was, music, restless, the GI Bill was somewhat helpful. He attended college but left after 6 months. He attempted to lay carpet like his father did, but because of the explosions he had experienced, loud noises made him fear. PTSD is the term used by doctors today. It was merely something that veterans attempted to conceal back then. In 1947, he enrolled in oil painting studies at the Chouinard Art Institute after being persuaded by a friend. He depicted Hollywood Boulevard sights, but one critical comment struck him more deeply than he had anticipated. Feeling disappointed and uncertain of his future, he quickly left the school. He nevertheless turned to acting auditions as a result of his frustration. He required something fresh. A door free from the memories of childhood suffering and war was what he wanted. In 1954, he landed his first real TV role in a courtroom sequence for Dragnet. He chose to improvise lines to add intrigue to the situation because he was paid $10 for the day. The producers let him go right away. It was shameful. Due to injuries, he had already given up on a football career, and now Hollywood was closing the door behind him. But he learned a lesson from that humiliation. He gained discipline in a room full of people observing him and learned to respect the script. Shortly after, his agency advised him to change the name Bumgar because it sounded too rustic. His name was James Garner. He soon found himself in The Male Animal on Broadway in 1955. Music, his delivery was criticized for being wooden. Despite his nervousness and near forgetting his lines, he persisted. He was shaped by every error. Music, every time he performed on stage, his confidence grew. In 1956, he landed his first movie role. In Toward the Unknown, he had a brief appearance as a gas station music attendant. But after he tried out for Maverick, things was different. The position attracted around 200 actors. He was initially employed as a stunt double, but the director found something endearing and informal about him. Despite his lack of experience in the genre, they chose him over more seasoned Western actors. That choice would go down in TV history as a turning point. He had a disagreement with director George Marshall on the show's tone during pre-production in 1957. The filmmaker desired a somber Western. Garner desired levity. With a smile no cowboy had ever tried on TV, he delivered lines and slid in ad-libs. Executives adored it. The audience proved him correct when the pilot aired
in September 1957 and became an immediate music smash, despite the rumors that he was difficult. That success didn't stop him from having financial difficulties. In season 1, he earned just $1,000 per episode. Music, he resumed modeling Jensen swimsuits to pay his costs. While people gazed and photographers took shots, he stood on beaches in small suits. Even though he detested it, it kept him going. That, music, shame on those bikinis, in a weird sense, helped him live long enough to become the guy the world would eventually praise. Maverick and James Garner's ascent was not gradual. It struck like a spark igniting a fire. When the show debuted on September 22, 1957, it faced off against industry titans like The Steve Allen Show and the Music, Ed Sullivan Show. However, Maverick jumped up to number 6 in the Nielsen rankings in a matter of weeks. Nearly 20 million people watched every episode at the end of the first season. For a new, music, Western, this was unheard of, and nobody really knew about a young actor. Something clicked, though, the instant Garner put himself in Brett Maverick's position. He portrayed a man who utilized cunning schemes and cards rather than bullets to talk his way out of difficulty. People adored how unique it was. The jokes came so naturally. The drawbacks felt more like lighthearted music than harsh. As a result of Garner's effortless charisma, viewers continued to return. His name quickly became well known, and he became the type of celebrity who redefined the ideal of what a television hero should look like. He became even more at ease as 1958 and 1959 saw the arrival of season 2. He began to believe his gut more than the script. He occasionally skipped rehearsals completely. One day, he added a line that had never been written before. "The man you are staring at is desperate." In the episode Shady Deal at Sunny Acres, he surprised the group by dropping it. Critics hailed it as one of his best scenes because it felt so authentic. It was dangerous at a time when every line had to be delivered precisely as it was written. But his timing brought life to the show. Its magic was a result of that intuition, that looseness, and music. Then a small trick from his history appeared. According to Garner, he actually tricked his co-star Apham Zimblius Jr. in the 1959 episode by using a card trick he learned in the Merchant Marine. Acting was not the response on screen. It was a complete shock. For years, the scenario was discussed by fans. It was even mentioned later as one of the highlights of the 2005 DVD commentary. It demonstrated that Garner was more than a brilliant man. He had one. He tried something different by 1960. The James Garner Show is a variety pilot that he filmed. It was disliked by test audiences. About 45% of them were accepted. The entire performance collapsed as soon as they realized Garner was uncomfortable singing. It was an unexpected setback following such a rapid ascent. It knocked him down just enough to remind him that Hollywood stardom might be fleeting. He therefore returned to more realistic roles as he attempted to regain his footing. He made an appearance in a crossover episode on Cheyenne that same year. Music, his character killed someone cold-bloodedly this time. The fact that it was so dissimilar from the happy poker player they loved startled the fans. Garner, though, desired more layers. Music, he desired parts with more than appeal, he wanted roles with gloom and suspense. Everyone could see from that point that he would not be limited to a single type of character indefinitely. Before long, everything was different, but not in the way he had anticipated. Due to unpaid Maverick revenues, he filed a $3 million lawsuit against Warner Brothers in 1960. He asserted that the studio concealed profits from things like comic books, which brought in roughly $500,000, and kept half of the merchandising revenue. Warner claimed that they might delay his compensation due to a writer's strike. The judge didn't agree. The judge, Music, declared that the studio had broken the agreement because production had gone on. Although Garner prevailed, he lost nearly everything in the process. Warner Brothers immediately dismissed him. Hollywood went out of business. The man who beat a large studio was not wanted for a job. He struggled for a time to find any TV gigs. Music, it revealed how the system operated and the reasons why the majority of actors were afraid to resist. He started doing theater work in 1961 after TV was banned. He participated in the Broadway production of The Skin of Our Teeth. The reviews were negative. Critics described his performance as lifeless and lifeless. They attributed it to his stress. They were also correct. He was drained of legal fees. He accepted any job that came his way as a result of the pressure from the litigation. His life turned into a silent warning throughout this period. In Hollywood, standing up for yourself could cost more than just money. Your self-assurance, your balance, and your entire sense of direction could be lost. In 1964, the lawsuit was finally settled for about $1.5 million, or nearly $15 million today. Nevertheless, the film industry's memory was not erased by the wind. He was avoided by agents. He used a portion of that compensation to finance his own pilot, Nichols, while the studios pretended not to see him, Music. In 1971, NBC broadcast it, but it was canceled after just one season. Sponsors expressed dissatisfaction. According to one account, the show didn't feel like Maverick, which is why the wife of a Music Chevrolet executive didn't like it. In addition to the burden he had been bearing since the litigation, Garner had to witness the collapse of his own investment in front of him. He had attempted a different route back in 1963 while the legal dispute was still raging. Wildcatting for oil in Oklahoma. It was risky. He was hoping it would save him money. Instead, dry wells cost him almost $200,000. Those wells had a success rate of less than 2% at the time. From the beginning, the chances were against him. Music, only thanks to his wife Lois's modeling salary did he get it out of bankruptcy. It was one of his most difficult periods. A shift followed. Following the settlement, he acted in the 1964 film The Americanization of Emily. Music, he played a pacifist, which was very different from his previous Western roles, in this dark comedy that took place during World War II. The writing was incisive. It was a bold message. Everyone applauded his performance. In 1965, he even received a Golden Globe nomination. He emerged from exile in this role, demonstrating that he was capable of more than just a lovely smile. On September 13, 1974, 10 years later, The Rockford Files made its debut. NBC hoped for a mediocre performance. Instead, in its first season, the show drew in over 15 million people every week. Fans adored Jim Rockford, a private detective, Music, who was honest, humorous, and had the kind of imperfections that gave him a genuine feel. He was a trailer man. He dealt with cases that felt human and chaotic. He became well known for his answering machine messages. Compared to other networks' polished heroes, he was trusted more. The program took over as the mainstay of NBC's Music Friday nights by 1975. Garner molded the persona himself behind the scenes. In the early seasons, he rewrote roughly 30% of his dialogue. Authors observed him discarding lines and substituting them with more organic music. They were astonished, but it was effective. In 1977, he was awarded the Emmy for Outstanding Main Actor. Every statement was honest, as the audience sensed. They witnessed his hazards as well. Despite suffering from severe knee injuries, he performed his own stunts. Music, falls, battles, chased moments. Unwilling to impede output, he used Tylenol and ice packs to push through discomfort. By the fourth season in 1977 and 1978, the toll had begun to show. On TV, his limp was genuine. His acting was praised by critics, but the pain was that he wasn't acting at all. These injuries ultimately contributed significantly to his Music decision to terminate the program after 6 seasons. The tale did not, however, end there. Because it reflected Garner's own early years in the Merchant Navy, the 1976 episode The Kirchhoff Case, Music, stood out. Because it was based on actual recollections, the smuggling storyline seemed genuine. He had his eyebrows singed by an explosion sequence that went horribly wrong during filming. The threat added to the episode's unvarnished vibe. The episode became one of the most talked about in the series because viewers were not accustomed to this degree of grit on network television. When The Rockford Files concluded in 1980, he shocked everyone once more. When he made a comeback in 1994 as Jim Rockford in the TV film, Music, I Still Love LA, viewers flocked in droves. Over 17 million households were watching. It outperformed all other TV films of the season with an 18.5 Music rating and a 28 share. It demonstrated a powerful point. Decades might go by. Roles may shift. The popularity of studios could fluctuate. However, James Garner continued to be a beloved figure. It was an enduring character. The man endured. And he continued to move forward one chapter at a time on the adventure that started with a smooth-talking gambler. Before James Garner ever portrayed a hero on television, he entered the realm of peril and speed. And everything around him changed the instant he got into the Formula One car for the 1966 Grand Prix. On the Monaco track, he navigated actual turns at a speed of about 150 miles per hour despite having no prior racing expertise. He initially approached it as a challenge, but John Frankenheimer, the director, shocked everyone by allowing him to drive actual Formula One cars for authenticity's sake. During a wild take one day, the car lost control, veered off track, and struck a Ferrari with enough force to send it plummeting into the Mediterranean Sea. Production was halted for Music days due to the accident, which also injured his co-star Brian Bedford. Garner didn't give up despite the shock in the air. He continued to come. He continued to return to those vehicles. The crew gradually came to the conclusion that he wasn't acting bold. In fact, he had courage. $2 million of the $10 million total cost of production went for music, for the racing scenes alone. Garner gave those sequences a sense of realism that has led to their being discussed to this day. In 1978, after several years, he entered a different race. Hollywood accounting was involved this time. In the 1960s, he reappeared with the new Maverick after defeating Warner Brothers in a major lawsuit. $2 million was the initial budget for music, but Garner examined every line and began cutting. He divided directing responsibilities, cut retakes, and altered schedules. Executives were shocked to learn that the final figure was $1.2 million. Without sacrificing quality, he had reduced the price of music by 40%. It proved that he was more than just an actor, and it became a minor Hollywood legend. He was familiar with the industry surrounding it. Then Murphy's Romance came out in 1985. In a little hamlet in Arizona, Garner was a kind musician who was adored by the locals. His only Oscar nomination for Best Actor came from his performance, Music. William Hurt defeated him at the 1986 event, although he went on to win the Golden Globe for Best Actor in a Comedy or Musical. The fact that Marlon Brando was once desired by the studio for the role added to the victory. His casting, Music, was battled for by Sally Field and Garner, who demonstrated their correctness. He increased his risks with time. He provided God's voice in the animated series God, the Devil, and Music, Bob in March 2000. His interpretation of God said things like, "I made dinosaurs, music, and someone who could have been your neighbor." The big mistake infuriated religious organizations. Before canceling the show, NBC ran 4 episodes. Years later, the final 9 episodes were broadcast on Adult Swim, where the show attracted a small but devoted following. It demonstrated Garner's fearlessness in taking on new roles even in his senior years. There were struggles in his real life. At 60 years of age, he underwent a quintuple cardiac bypass in April 1988. He left the hospital in 1 week, against the doctor's expectations that he would stay for 2. Before going back to work on more Rockford Files TV shows, he surreptitiously worked out and dropped 30 pounds. Even yet, he was put to the test once more. He was out of commission for months in 2008 due to a serious stroke that affected his speech. He overcame that as well with the same unwavering resolve that people had always respected. Then 2000 arrived once more, this time for Cowboys in Space. Garner, 72, had undergone 7 knee surgery. Younger performers were left speechless by his handling of centrifuge testing and zero-gravity training, however. He outlived guys who were decades younger, as Clint Eastwood observed in Music. The training records demonstrated this. He pushed himself, musically, to make his character as a former astronaut feel authentic. He received, Music, the Screen Actors Guild's Lifetime Achievement Award in 2010. He had been keeping a door closed for years until his speech that evening. He said that he experienced mood fluctuations that resembled bipolar episodes when he struggled with music. He talked about how the fluctuations almost ended his marriage. The room sensed that the moment originated from an honest place. Garner quietly stopped performing by 2011. Many were taken aback by the truth behind his retirement. He was terrified about Alzheimer's. He observed minor errors. He was perplexed by the scenes. He made the decision to depart on his own terms. His candor made it easier for many older admirers to relate to their own concerns. His marriage has its share of upheavals. He met Lois Clark at an Adlai Stevenson rally on August 1, 1956, Music. On August 17, 16 days later, they were married at the Beverly Hills courthouse. In January 1958, their daughter she was born, and he quickly adopted her daughter Kimberly. Despite the modest size and simplicity of their first house, Garner consistently claimed that it felt right. Things didn't always go as planned. He went into a profound despair in 1970, at the height of Maverick's stardom, and disappeared into a Palm Springs cabin. Later, Lois discovered black drawings on the pages of his writing. He described that time in his life as the darkest of music. He returned with a fresh perspective on his own thoughts after therapy drew him back. They were apart for 18 months in 1979. When Gigi was 12, she witnessed her parents argue about alimony in a hotel room. Garner broke and used a chair to destroy a television. She stayed in the room and spoke with them until they calmed down, even though she described it as the scariest moment of her early years. Later on, music, said their marriage was salvaged by that time. The strain on the family didn't stop there. The 1990s saw Kimberly attempt music, acting. Concerned with the appearance, Garner ceased to endorse her performances. His 1988 heart operation, music, caused their link to break, and it remained strained until they gradually re-established it. Later on, she wrote that the most crucial lesson she acquired throughout those years was forgiveness. Up to October 13, 2021, Lois was alive. She was 98 years old, music. She died in 2014, almost 7 years after Garner. Compared to nearly other Hollywood couple, their marriage lasted 58 years. Gigi claimed that the fact that they remained together through so much was a miracle. Garner passed away in his Brentwood home on July 19, 2014, at the age of 86. The coroner listed acute emphysema, complications from previous heart problems, and natural causes. Sleeping, he passed away. It had been years since his will was revised. The estate, however, settled amicably. It was worth about $20 million in all. $10 million of those went toward his Brentwood mansion. In 2015, Gigi was listed as a main beneficiary in court papers that reveal no disagreements. In 2015, Gigi founded the James Garner Animal Rescue Fund. She used her wealth to assist in the annual rescue of over 500 pets. With EIN 833131747, the charity was officially acknowledged as Music, a 501c3 organization. From transportation to medical treatment, she took care of everything. According to her, her father always had a preference for stray animals, particularly Nikki, a puppy he discovered while attempting to give up smoking. Additionally, a portion of the inheritance, music, funded scholarships for veterans of the Merchant Marine. The cause was very important to Garner, who served during World War II. These scholarships assisted soldiers in paying for their education or training. The speed at which the estate proceeded through probate, particularly in contrast to cases that were rife with conflict, was noted in court documents in 2015. Fans were taken aback when Heritage Auctions sold an unpublished Rockford Files script for $50,000 in April, Music, 2020. The margins were full of Garner's handwritten comments. Some of them looked at healing in PTSD. It allowed viewers to closely examine how meticulously he developed his persona and how seriously he took the show's development. The documentary Maverick Man, which debuted on Hulu in 2025, exposed younger viewers to Garner's struggles behind the scenes. They saw a video from his 1980s lawsuit against Universal about earnings from syndication. That lawsuit altered the way performers negotiated contracts and resulted in a $14 million compensation. He entered and exited courtrooms with a quiet resolve, according to the documentary. It served as a reminder that his influence extended well beyond the roles he portrayed.